Jay here for Stretford, Paddock, and this is the Tier 1 Transfer Podcast. Joining me, as always, is my co-host, Ronaldo Brown. You all right after yesterday?
Not really.
No,
I'm not
and
gonna
none
lie
of us
to you.
are, but you particularly are Mr. Moody when we lose.
I feel like you kind of took that mantle from me yesterday, watching you. You looked
It was hard
like
to
a
take,
defeated
mate.
man.
It was hard to take, especially when I had to stand in for McCullough doing the fan cams and the 7 reasons we lost. Not what you want to be doing after a 6-1 defeat. Anyway, we move on. We're here to talk about transfers and Manchester United. And joining us is a special guest, Henry Winter from The Times. Henry, thanks for joining us.
Hi, Jay. Hi, Ronaldo.
Now, we know it's not over yet, but as it stands on deadline day, Manchester United are still trying to get deals done, and it looks like we won't be getting our main target, Jadon Sancho. How would you sum up the club's transfer strategy this summer?
About the same as the defending yesterday. I think a club of Manchester United's stature and wealth and ability to employ the right people, you shouldn't be in this situation. You shouldn't be having to buy individuals at the last moment. Obviously, players can crop up, but Jadon Sancho, that deal should have been sorted out 6-7 months ago. Everyone knew that Manchester United were in for him. Everyone knew that that Jadon Sancho, the player himself, was keen to move. You could see his relationship via England or just through WhatsApp, whatever, with individuals like Marcus Rashford. Jadon Sancho wants to move to Manchester United. I think Borussia Dortmund have actually played just a very clever game with this, and they basically just said, "Look, pay us the money, and then we'll talk." But it seems like everything else was agreed, except the most important thing was actually agreeing it with Borussia Dortmund. I can understand why Ed Woodward and Manchester United, particularly in the age of COVID, would want to be concerned about not overpaying. But if you've got the money and you need a player, and the manager wants the player, which Solskjaer clearly does, bring him in and get him in early, because then, if he comes in today, which doesn't look like all those games where he could have been bedded in, even with a short pre-season. So I do find it very strange. I've got some sympathy with Solskjaer and all this. I personally feel that he should maybe show his teeth a little bit more and actually not necessarily call out the Glazers publicly, although they deserve it, but actually go in a little bit harder on the fans. The Glazers are very fortunate the games are behind closed doors at the moment, because otherwise I'm sure the sounds inside the ground would echo the sentiments outside the ground on social media, fans forum. I'm sure you've been reflecting this as well about the Glazers, not doing enough.
You literally just mentioned that you feel a little bit of sympathy for Ole Gunnar Solskjaer. So if you was basically to describe it in a sense, how well do you think he's actually been backed in the transfer window?
Well, he hasn't been backed properly in the transfer window. I mean, you can see that he wanted Jadon Sancho. I think if he talked maybe a bit more publicly and a bit more openly, probably would wanted to get a centre back in. It looks like Telles is coming in at left back, which is fine. Look, Solskjaer's got to take some blame with all this in terms of the coaching, but there's no ego to Solskjaer. He's doing it for the good of Manchester United. Everyone knows where Solskjaer's true heart lies, and that's it's like listening to Gary Neville and Patrice Evra on Sky yesterday. They want the best for Manchester United, and Solskjaer does clearly as well. He could see the issues in the team, and I think he's having to manage with one hand behind his back. You can argue about whether he's a great tactician and a great coach. Clearly, he's young, he's developing. He's not on the level of, some top coaches in this country. But he has to be allowed to build the team that he wants, his way. He has a philosophy there, and it is returning to the United way. I mean, personally, I was disappointed when he brought on 2 defensive players. There's only 1 defensive player. Yes, so that's not the Manchester United way. You attack, but you've got to give him just all the tools, all the players. I have an element of sympathy for him, yeah.
Why do you feel like the club hasn't backed him fully? Do you think it's financial, or do you just think it's a lack of ambition almost by the board?
Well, the Glazers don't seem, they're not living on the breadline in the Everglades. They do have the money. And what I don't understand is that you see how everyone else is investing. And these are teams who could squeeze Manchester United out of the Champions League positions towards the end of the season. At the moment, will Manchester United finish in the Champions League positions. They won't finish in the European positions if they continue playing like yesterday. They have to sort things out. So look, the only language the Glazers understand is financial. We've seen it with the money that they've taken out of the club. And absolutely, it has to be explained to them that they are not going to compete unless they invest. Just look at, Chelsea on a more lavish scale, Arsenal on a more judicious scale. Even Liverpool have invested. Clubs are paying a lot. And if you take a team like Aston Villa. Aston Villa went out and invested intelligently, and they'll be a threat to Manchester United when they play them this season.
I mean, you touched upon it there. How competitive do you feel the signings that United have made will allow Manchester United and Ole Gunnar Solskjaer to be? Do you think that getting into the top four is going to be very difficult?
It could do if they don't buy a centre half. I mean, when Bailly arrived, I thought, well, he's got all the sort of gifts to be a good central defender. Particularly, he's got the pace. I mean, look, Harry Maguire is a good defender. He may still be distracted by Mykonos. I don't know, but some of those mistakes he made yesterday, were really poor. But he's always had an issue with pace. So for him to work best, he needs someone quick alongside him. And so look, Solskjaer's not stupid. Solskjaer's been in the game a long time. He spent most of his life looking at centre halves and trying to find out their weaknesses and working on keeping away from their strengths. So he will know about what that team's needed. He grew up with Ferguson, who always built on a solid back four. So Solskjaer will know that. And he knows he needs a right-sided centre half. The left back issue is being addressed. Personally, I quite like Brandon Williams. I can see there's a player long term in here. I quite like the fight in him. He looks like he's got a little bit of grit, determination. We saw what he did with Hudson-Odoi at Stamford Bridge, throwing him over the hoardings. So he's a tough little character who may well train on long term. But I mean, Luke Shaw should have been sent off yesterday. I mean, there's a good player in Luke Shaw, but he needs the right combination of stick and carrot to get the best out of him. But absolutely, I mean, Telles may well, he is a good player, 27, but he'll come in and I'm sure he'll strengthen that defence. But also, I mean, everyone panics at the start of the season. I'm sure Liverpool fans are looking at what happened to them yesterday and thinking, what's going on here? You need teams time to settle in defensively as well. Chelsea had a difficult start to the season, and now they look like they've settled on the back four that they need, and they build on. I also think with Manchester United, I'm not trying to give excuses for Solskjaer, but he didn't really have much of a pre-season in terms of building. But again, players should have been bought earlier and built in. It just seems strange the club of, you go to Manchester United and so much of it is well organised. And then you think the most important thing, the recruitment, they're just simply not getting right in terms of the players in at the right time and the right players targeting the right individuals as well. So look, I didn't like the abuse that Woodward got last season. I don't think it helps the club, and I think it's certainly disgraceful if you're targeting people's kids. But he's got to react. He's got to call the Glazers out, call them more to account, and invest properly. Because otherwise, Manchester United, and you guys will know better than I will, are at risk of being left behind. Certainly in the pursuit of the title, no chance. So, but in terms of pursuit of Champions League position, definitely that's a serious risk.
Now, there's been a lot of criticism of the club's transfer policy. I mean, we've seen ex-players. You mentioned Gary Neville, Patrice Evra. We've seen them speaking out. Journalists, of course. And even to a certain degree, Luke Shaw, who earlier this summer was talking about the lack of transfers, which is almost unheard of from a United player to talk about that. What do you think that says about United currently?
Well, on a positive, it shows that people care. I mean, when I listened to Patrice Evra and Gary Neville yesterday, they cared. When I read Marcus Rashford's sort of mini statement last night, he cares. I think that's really important. You could see in Ole Gunnar Solskjaer's face, he cares. So, they're good people there who are suffering. I mean, I know Harry Maguire a bit. I know that he will hate a situation like this, particularly with the mistakes he's made. These are professionals who are proud. So, the players rightly deserved and the manager deserved the criticism yesterday, but they're not bad characters. So I think they will respond. I think also the criticism, and the fact that you've got a program like this, and The interest in Manchester United is just huge around the world, and there will be a scrutiny over absolutely everything, and rightly so, because you are a big club, not simply in terms of fan base, also in terms of history, also in terms of the players you've got, also in terms of the players who would actually like to join you, like Jadon Sancho. He's a fantastic, and someone described him as a generational talent. He's fantastic. He'll play for England for the next 10 years. And I think, I talked to Solskjaer about this, where we were at Kenilworth Road the other night, and we're actually quite rare for journalists at the moment. We're actually allowed to sort of shout questions across the touchline rather than doing it on Zoom with Ollie. And I said, will Mason eventually become a centre forward? And he said, absolutely, yes. He says he needs to work on his heading. But absolutely, I think he'll become a centre forward. So if you think, look, I know the fans love Martial, and I know he's not on the best run at the moment. I thought he was unlucky yesterday. You either sent both of them off, or you booked them both. But I think a Manchester United attack of Rashford, Greenwood, and Sancho, three guys who know each other, like each other, want to play with each other. That would be a fantastic attack for Manchester United. You could argue England for the next few years. In all this talk about recruitment, I feel a little bit sorry for Donny van de Beek, because he's sitting on the bench and he's thinking, I played for Holland, I've played for Ajax, I got us to a Champions League semi-final. He's a talented player, and he's sitting on the bench. But it comes back to a centre half. If you put a strong, Upamecano, an individual like that who can play at centre back, a bit of pace to cover for Maguire, an organiser, communicator. It's interesting. I've probably done about 35, 40 games behind closed doors since Project Restart and this season. And you can really tell the teams that communicate. And Manchester United are not the noisiest of teams. A lot of that you just simply wouldn't tell when you've got 70,000 at Old Trafford. But actually in the games, you can tell the noisy ones around the country, the Connor Codys and Jordan Henderson when he's playing. That's not the noisiest of defences, Manchester United.
Obviously, a lot of the talk when it comes to United and the transfer window has been around potential incomings, but when it comes to actually selling players, how well do you think United have actually done that this summer?
Poorly. You've got a slightly bloated squad, and particularly in the age of COVID, you've got to balance the books a little bit more. That there are players there who need to go. Some of them are going. One I do find, and maybe this is sort of heart-ruling head a little bit, I do find the treatment of Chris Smalling slightly strange. I know Chris well because he does a lot of amazing work with Football Beyond Borders, and I've done some work with him on that. And I did a Zoom with him when just before he was going out to training at Roma about 2-3 months ago. And I still think, look, he's enjoying life in Rome. I know he's back training over here now, but is Lindelof a better defender than Chris Smalling? When I talk about a defender, Chris Smalling just lives for clean sheets. It hurts him if he concedes a goal. So, but he's not being allowed to go to Rome, or there's a hold up there, which I simply don't understand. So, yeah, absolutely, they need to trim the squad, but they've got to do it wisely. I know there's a softness for Lingard because of he scores goals in big games, and because he obviously had sort of domestic issues with his mother, and everyone sort of sympathises with that. I just don't think if Manchester United are going to be a top Champions League team, that Lingard really fits into that. I don't think he's top of the range. So maybe it's time for him to move on as well. So look. Absolutely, you're completely right. It's the outgoings as well as the incomings, and I think I know the whole director of football issue is a vexed one at Manchester United, but I do think that sporting directors, director of footballs, whatever you want to call them, they're very good at actually getting players out as well as getting players in and balancing the squad. It's a strange balance with a club of Manchester United's stature and wealth that they don't have a director of football who will liaise with Solskjaer, who will liaise with Woodward, who will get things done. Particularly if you're a club like Manchester United, the amount of agents who must be calling Solskjaer, his job is to get down the training ground and drill that defence and prepare the team tactically for the weekend. I know you're a club which had, one of the greatest managers this country's ever seen, Sir Alex Ferguson, who ran everything. And I could absolutely understand that. But in a way, it's slightly changed now with players becoming more high maintenance, with agents being more demanding, with a player moving to a club and his washing machine not working, and suddenly the agent calls up the manager. Well, I mean, the manager's got more important things like that. I know they're player liaison officers, but I do think a director of football would help, partly as a lightning rod to take some of the criticism away and the focus away from Solskjaer. But maybe that's a conversation for another day. You've got to get the right person who actually works with the manager. So, but you're not going to sort that out in the next few hours before the transfer window closes. What you've got to do is try and get a defender in. And I say that Manchester United after Traore, Atalanta. I mean, that's part of a long-term development. He's just turned 18. He's played 3 games, all from the bench for Atalanta. And I think he can't come in until January anyway. So that's a sort of longer term thing. But now, this is Manchester United. I don't need to tell you that. Your life revolves around the club. But as an outsider who's been covering football for 35 years and fortunate to cover Manchester United when they dominated for 20 years, this is Manchester United. You're not a corner shop. You're the Harrods of English football. You should be doing things with proper wealth. And if that means paying over the odds for an English player, and there is an extra tariff involved with English players, then just go and do it. You're Manchester United. Jadon Sancho will be look, Cavani will do well for you, I'm sure, if he stays fit. Look, you look at I've watched him enough for Uruguay batter England to know what a good player he is. I've seen him enough, particularly for Napoli. People talk about PSG and the goal ratio then was amazing. But his goal record in Napoli, the league, was like, I think it was more than a goal in every other game. He's got a good return. He's a good finisher. He's a fantastic work ethic. But he's 33. Jadon Sancho should be the future of Manchester United, not Edison Cavani.
You mentioned earlier about Marcus Rashford and his statement. And, listen, I know players are always going to be upset after a loss like the one we saw against Spurs. But even that aside, we've seen the sort of the I don't know, the reactions and the mood around the club. It just doesn't seem like it's a happy camp at the minute. Is that the way you see it?
The body language was really poor yesterday. I mean, maybe there were 1 or 2 issues that they wanted to prove a point to Jose Mourinho, and it wasn't working, and it frustrated even more. But that's not the Manchester United way, and you could hear that hurt and that anger in the voices of Gary Neville and Patrice Evra. I thought Patrice was actually going to walk out of the studio. He was just so genuinely upset about it. And you know what? I wouldn't say that the game's necessarily changed so much that hurt is not there in the modern players, but you do like to see that a bit more. And in fairness, you could see that in Rashford. I mean, I know Marcus a little bit, and I just know how much he does care about this club. He's talked in the past about wanting to captain them one day. You can just see it every time he goes on the pitch. He wants to give everything. And when he comes off and Manchester United haven't won, even if he's scored a great goal or done a great trick or whatever, he hurts. I just think they all need to hurt. I think they need to be individual hurt and collective hurt. And I think this is Manchester United. You could argue this at other clubs, that Manchester United are really suffering from not having fans there. I cannot believe the Stretford end would have accepted those substitutions yesterday. There would have been attack, and then the Spurs scored 2 more goals. So it didn't actually help anyway. The Manchester United way is to be fearless. And I think there's a little bit of fear in that dressing room at the moment.
Henry, as always, great speaking to you. And hopefully we'll be able to do it again soon. And hopefully Manchester United will make some more signings between now.
Got a few hours left.
Yeah, we've got a few hours left, so you never know. That was Henry Winter. That was Ronaldo Brown. I've been Jay Motti. This has been the Stretford Paddock Tier 1 Transfer Podcast. Don't forget to hit like, share and subscribe. Thanks for watching.